A draft resolution currently being negotiated by the Council requests the Secretary-General to establish an international independent investigative commission into the attacks, including identifying its perpetrator, sponsors, organisers and accomplices.
From the end of the Cold War alone, in line with a document that was prepared in 2022 by the U.S. Congress Research Institute, there were 250 cases of the use of U.S. armed force abroad. So it's only they who can kill and maim civilians in other countries, refusing to hand over the perpetrators to the international justice system. Along with their allies who run with a herd, they call this the rules-based order, where the rules are dictated by themselves. But this, before blowing up a foreign pipeline that is the property of a state with whom the US is not in a state of war, previously they didn't stoop to this, but this day has now come.
Russia's claim of U.S. responsibility is supported by a recent blog post by U.S. investigative journalist Seymour Hersh, alleging that U.S. Navy divers operating under the cover of a NATO exercise with Norway last year placed explosives on the two pipelines, which were detonated 3 months later on the orders of President Joe Biden.
Mr. President.
The story has been categorically denied by the U.S.
This is not the first time Russia has used its seat on this council to amplify conspiracy theories from the internet. We wish it would apply the same urgency shown over the past 3 days instead to the myriad credible reports of human rights abuses and violations of international humanitarian law caused by its invading forces. However, let me state clearly and plainly, accusations the United States was involved in this act of sabotage are completely false. The United States was not involved at all.
A joint letter sent to the Council by Denmark, Sweden and Germany indicated that their investigations into the sabotage had not yet concluded, but that such deliberate acts were unacceptable. While this Columbia University economist, speaking at Russia's invitation, pointed to statements from senior U.S. officials that showed animus towards the pipeline.
On January 28, 2023, Undersecretary Nuland declared in testimony to Senator Ted Cruz in the U.S. Senate, quote, "I am, and I think the administration is, very gratified to know that Nord Stream 2 is now, as you like to say, a hunk of metal at the bottom of the sea," end quote. Such language is not at all appropriate in the face of international terrorism. I hope that the United States, together with all other Security Council members, will condemn this act of international terrorism and join together in an urgent UN Security Council-led investigation of this international crime in order to determine the truth.
The UN Secretariat, for its part, said it was not in a position to verify or confirm any of the claims, but would abide by any mandate given to it by the Council.
We will, as we always do, abide by any mandate given to us by the Security Council or in this case, by the Security Council.
The Council vote could coincide with the one-year anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine this Friday. Sherman Bricepies, SABC News, New York.
A Republican member of the U.S. Congress has introduced a resolution calling on the administration of President Joe Biden to review its relationship with South Africa following its hosting of joint military exercises with China and Russia. The resolution by Representative John James of Michigan, which has been submitted to the House of Foreign Affairs Committee, calls on the government of South Africa to cancel all future military exercises with both aforementioned countries and to respect the United Nations Charter and publicly oppose what it calls Russia's unjustified and unprovoked invasion of Ukraine, unquote. Sherman Bricepies reports that it's unclear when and if the resolution will be debated or voted on.
The resolution seeks to highlight the strong relationship enjoyed between both the South African government and the ruling ANC with Russian and Chinese entities, and calls on the Biden administration to conduct a thorough review of the current and future status of the U.S. South Africa bilateral relationship in light of the South African government's international affairs posture and actions. This includes a detailed account of the positive economic results stemming from South Africa's inclusion in the African Growth and Opportunity Act and the U.S. South Africa Trade and Investment Framework signed in 2012.
Thank you, Mr. President.
The resolution notes that South Africa has voted in alignment with the People's Republic of China within the UN General Assembly in 2022, especially as it relates to votes condemning what it refers to as Russia's unjustified and unprovoked invasion of Ukraine. Pretoria has abstained on all those resolutions. The congressional draft resolution's text further calls on South Africa to maintain its national sovereignty by reducing its reliance on Chinese companies in key sectors, including ICT. Visiting Washington last year, President Cyril Ramaphosa strongly condemned efforts in the U.S. Congress to table a bill that sought to act against African countries supporting Russian activities in Africa and which would oblige Washington to punish any African governments that help so-called Russian malign activities in the region.
We raised this as a concern that if that bill were to go through, it would marginalize Africa, because it would seem like Africa would now be punished for having partners, a partner like Russia, and for the most part, most of African countries are non-aligned, and we expressed the view that it would be unfair for the US to punish African countries by just merely either associating with Russia on an economic basis or a business basis.
Ramaphosa warned at the time that the Countering Malign Russian Activities in Africa Act appeared to be an effort to punish sovereign countries that pursue an independent foreign policy. That bill passed the House but was not voted on by the Senate during the previous Congress, whose term ended in January in the aftermath of last year's midterm elections. Sherwin Rice, please, SABC News, New York.